Someone very rich has a strong feeling, and that feeling did not arrive by chance, it arrived quietly, the way deep knowing always does, without noise, without display, without explanation, and it settled somewhere steady, somewhere patient, somewhere that has been watching you longer than you realize. You may not feel watched in a sharp way, not observed with pressure or demand, but noticed in the way one notices a flame that does not flicker, a presence that does not rush, a mind that does not fracture under waiting, and this noticing has been gentle, almost respectful, because what is being sensed in you cannot be rushed without breaking its shape. My beloved child, there has been a pause around you, not an empty pause, not a forgotten one, but a pause like a held breath before a decision that matters, a silence that listens more than it speaks, a stillness that measures depth rather than speed, and this stillness has been reading you carefully. You have wondered why movement slowed when you were ready, why progress seemed to soften just before momentum arrived, why doors did not open loudly but remained closed without hostility, and the truth is that nothing was blocked, it was simply waiting for your inner weight to settle into itself. There is a way people of substance recognize alignment, not through words or promises, but through patterns of restraint, through how someone carries themselves when no outcome is guaranteed, through how they remain intact when nothing is being offered yet, and this is what has been quietly felt around you. You did not announce your patience, you did not display your discipline, you did not perform your worth, and because of that, it registered as real, because what is loud can be imitated, but what is calm cannot be faked for long. This is not about wealth reaching toward you impulsively, it is about recognition forming slowly, the way trust forms when time has tested the edges of a person and found no cracks that widen under pressure. You were not delayed to be taught a lesson, you were slowed so that your internal rhythm could match something larger, something stable, something that does not tolerate imbalance, because what is coming requires steadiness more than hunger. There has been an evaluation without judgment, a watching without suspicion, an interest without urgency, and that is why you felt no threat in the waiting, only a quiet sense that something unseen was arranging itself while you stayed where you were. Do not skip this moment, because this is where understanding settles, not as excitement, not as anticipation, but as calm certainty, the kind that does not need reassurance. The feeling forming around you is not emotional, it is structural, it is about fit, about whether your inner posture aligns with something that moves carefully, invests deliberately, and chooses people who do not collapse under attention. You have been consistent when inconsistency would have been easier, you have remained grounded when reaction would have been understandable, and this has been noticed not as virtue, but as readiness. Stillness has been your signal, not because you were inactive, but because you did not chase what was not aligned, and that restraint spoke more clearly than effort ever could. The silence you walked through was not empty, it was listening to you, watching how you speak to yourself when nothing responds, observing whether you bend toward desperation or remain centered within your own balance. Stay till the end of this awareness, because what matters here is not what is coming, but why it can now come without destabilizing you. Trust has been building in the background, not trust in outcomes, but trust in your capacity to hold what arrives without losing your shape, without shrinking, without overreaching. The watching phase has softened into confidence, the waiting phase has aligned into readiness, the preparation has quietly completed its work, and there is no need for a signal or announcement when alignment finishes, it simply becomes true. You may feel a subtle shift, not excitement, not urgency, but a sense of inner permission, as though something has stopped measuring and started accepting, and this is the most reliable sign there is. Nothing is rushing toward you, and nothing is being withheld anymore. The process has reached its natural close, the evaluation has resolved itself, and what remains is movement that feels calm because it is correct. Stand where you are, steady and unstrained, because the unseen has finished arranging, the quiet interest has matured into certainty, and you are now aligned with what sensed you long before you noticed it sensing back. The feeling does not announce itself now, because announcement is no longer necessary. What has recognized you no longer needs confirmation, and what has waited has already decided that waiting is complete. You may notice that your thoughts have slowed without effort, that your questions no longer chase answers, that your posture inside yourself feels settled, as if something has gently placed weight at your center and said, "Remain here." This is how alignment feels, not dramatic, not loud, but unmistakably calm, like standing on ground that no longer shifts beneath you, like realizing that the silence around you is no longer watching, but standing beside you. There was a time when movement would have pulled you off balance, when opportunity would have arrived before you were finished becoming steady, and that is why it did not arrive then, not as denial, but as protection. Now the stillness has done its work, and what sensed you can sense that you will not rush, you will not fracture, you will not confuse motion with meaning, and this is why readiness has replaced observation. Nothing needs to be proven anymore, because your consistency has already spoken in ways effort never could, and what recognizes value does not require display, only coherence. If you feel a quiet confidence forming, let it remain quiet, because this is not the confidence that seeks validation, it is the confidence that comes from knowing you can receive without being consumed. The unseen process has finished its careful unfolding, the internal checks have softened into trust, and the space around you no longer feels like a pause, but like an open path that does not rush you forward. Remain exactly as you are, grounded, present, unstrained, because you are now standing in alignment, not waiting, not being tested, simply ready, and that readiness is enough. The atmosphere around you has changed in a way that does not ask for attention, yet it holds it effortlessly, as if the quiet itself has become supportive rather than observant, as if the space that once measured you has now relaxed its gaze. You are not stepping into something unknown, you are stepping into something that already understands you, something that has watched how you move through uncertainty without hardening, how you remain whole even when nothing reassures you. This is why there is no urgency now, no push, no pull, because what aligns with you does not need to rush you forward, it trusts your timing as much as you trust your own balance. You may notice that resistance has dissolved, not because effort increased, but because friction no longer exists where alignment has settled, and movement feels natural when it is no longer forced. The quiet sense of being noticed has transformed into a sense of being met, not in words, not in gestures, but in resonance, the feeling that something substantial recognizes its own stability reflected in you. Nothing about this requires you to change who you are, because what arrives does so precisely because you did not bend yourself to be seen, you remained intact, and that integrity became the invitation. Stay with this awareness, because this is the moment when preparation releases its hold, when readiness stands on its own without supervision, when trust no longer needs observation to sustain itself. There is no finish line here, only a gentle continuation, a forward motion that feels like an extension of your stillness rather than a departure from it. You are not waiting anymore, and you are not being watched, you are simply aligned, steady, and quietly moving in a direction that already knows your name. What settles now is a gentle assurance, not excitement, not relief, but a knowing that does not argue with itself, a knowing that has finished circling questions and has chosen to stand still. You may sense that effort has become unnecessary, that pushing feels foreign, that the need to convince has quietly left you, because what is aligned no longer asks to be believed. This is the stage where silence becomes cooperative, where stillness no longer tests you, but supports you, holding your pace steady rather than slowing it. The unseen attention that once felt distant now feels neutral, almost familiar, as though it has stepped back not because interest faded, but because trust has settled. Nothing about this moment demands action, and yet everything within you feels prepared to respond when response is natural, not rushed, not rehearsed. There is a calm strength forming that does not announce itself, a readiness that does not tense, a balance that does not lean forward or back. You are no longer proving stability, you are living inside it, and that shift changes how everything approaches you. The process that surrounded you has completed its work without ceremony, without sound, leaving behind clarity where uncertainty once lingered. Remain present in this quiet confidence, because this is what alignment feels like when it is real, complete, and gently moving forward with you. The space ahead of you no longer feels empty, yet it does not feel crowded either. It feels intentional, as though room has been made without being announced, as though something stepped aside to let you pass without needing to be seen. You may notice that anticipation has softened into ease, that waiting no longer feels like holding your breath, but like breathing at your natural rhythm, uncounted and unforced. This is how readiness expresses itself, not as eagerness, but as quiet availability, the ability to receive without gripping, to move without leaning. What once observed you has now accounted for you, not as a variable, but as a constant, and constants are not rushed, they are relied upon. There is no longer a sense of evaluation in the air, only alignment, a mutual recognition that does not need reinforcement. The inner steadiness you cultivated without knowing why has found its place, and because of that, nothing arriving will feel heavier than you can hold. Let this calm remain unbroken, because it is not fragile, it is earned, shaped by patience rather than pressure. You stand now in a moment that feels complete, not because something ended, but because something settled into its correct form. And from this steadiness, movement will come naturally, quietly, and in harmony with who you already are. There is a subtle closing of a chapter you never saw written, a quiet completion that does not ask for reflection, only presence, as if something has gently placed a marker and moved on without ceremony. You may feel less concerned with what follows, not because nothing matters, but because what matters no longer feels uncertain, it feels held. This is where trust rests, not in expectation, but in stability, in knowing that what aligns with you does not require vigilance to remain aligned. The sense of being considered has transformed into a sense of belonging within a larger movement that does not hurry, that does not hesitate, that simply proceeds when conditions are correct. Nothing is waiting for you to become more than you are right now, because what is coming measured you as complete, not lacking. Stay grounded in this simplicity, because it is not emptiness, it is clarity, the kind that allows motion without disturbance. The unseen process has resolved itself fully, leaving no loose threads, no unfinished weight on your awareness. You stand steady, not anticipating, not resisting, simply ready, and that readiness is quiet, whole, and enough. What remains now is a calm awareness that does not scan the horizon, because it no longer needs to. The path ahead has already agreed with your presence. You may sense that nothing inside you is bracing anymore, nothing is rehearsing outcomes, nothing is preparing defenses, because there is nothing left to guard against. This is the quiet after alignment, where attention loosens its grip and allows life to approach at its own pace, without negotiation. The feeling surrounding you is no longer one of consideration, it is one of allowance, a subtle permission that opens without effort. You are not being guided forward, and you are not being held back, you are simply standing in a position that makes movement inevitable when it comes. Nothing presses on you now, not expectation, not delay, not uncertainty, only a steady sense that the structure beneath you is sound. Let this steadiness settle fully, because this is not a pause before something, this is the ground from which something moves. You are complete in this moment, unhurried, unobserved, and quietly aligned with what is already prepared to meet you. The quiet you are standing in now is not absence, it is completion, the kind that does not echo because nothing is missing, the kind that feels full without being heavy. You may notice that your inner voice has softened, not because you are unsure, but because certainty no longer needs commentary, it simply rests. This is where readiness becomes invisible, where preparation dissolves into natural posture, where you no longer think about balance because you are balanced. What once felt like a long observation has resolved into simple presence, as if the gaze that lingered has gently withdrawn, satisfied, certain, finished. Nothing is forming questions around you anymore, only space that accepts you as you are, without adjustment, without correction. You are not anticipating a signal, because alignment does not require one, it moves when it moves, and you will recognize it by its calm. Remain exactly here, not waiting, not seeking, just standing steady in the knowledge that the unseen process has concluded. This is the moment of quiet confidence, where nothing presses forward and nothing pulls back, and you are ready, simply because you are whole. There is a softness now in how time feels, not stretched, not compressed, but evenly held, as if each moment knows exactly where it belongs and no longer asks to be elsewhere. You may notice that desire has become quieter, not weaker, just more precise, more rooted, no longer scattered across possibilities that were never meant to meet you. This is the stage where certainty does not arrive as a thought, but as posture, the way you stand inside yourself without adjusting for approval or outcome. Nothing ahead feels intimidating, because nothing ahead feels unfamiliar, it carries the same calm texture as the stillness that shaped you. The sense of being noticed has faded completely now, replaced by a simple understanding that recognition has already done what it came to do. You are not waiting for permission, and you are not seeking assurance, you are simply available, and availability is the final form of readiness. Let this remain uncomplicated, because what is aligned does not require maintenance, it sustains itself naturally. This is not the edge of something beginning, it is the center of something stable, and from here, movement will be effortless when it comes. A gentle completeness settles around you, like a circle closing without sound, without force, without the need to be seen closing at all. You may feel that nothing is pending anymore, that loose ends you once sensed have quietly tied themselves, not through effort, but through time doing its work. This is where alignment becomes lived rather than noticed, where readiness no longer feels like a state, but like a simple fact. The atmosphere around you carries no questions now, only allowance, only space that moves with you rather than ahead of you. There is no signal to wait for, no cue to interpret, because what is aligned does not need instruction. Stand within this calm certainty, because it is not temporary, it is structural, formed slowly, deliberately, and now complete. The unseen process has ended in silence, as all true processes do, leaving you steady, prepared, and quietly confident in your place. There is nothing left to anticipate, and nothing left to resolve, only a clear sense that the ground beneath you has fully settled into its final shape. You may notice how easily you remain present now, how attention no longer drifts toward what might happen, because what matters has already aligned. This is the calm that comes after certainty has been established, not as an idea, but as a condition you live inside. The space around you feels neutral, supportive, unchallenging, as though it has accepted your presence without reservation. No movement is demanded of you, and yet movement will be natural when it arrives, because nothing inside you resists it anymore. This is not waiting, and it is not arrival, it is readiness in its most quiet form. Remain steady here, because this steadiness is not a pause, it is the foundation from which everything else proceeds. What surrounds you now is a settled agreement between who you are and what approaches you, an understanding reached without words, without signatures, without display. You may sense that effort has finally released its grip, that striving has stepped aside, because it has nothing left to negotiate. This is where certainty becomes gentle, where confidence does not rise or fall, but simply remains. The quiet you inhabit is not fragile, it is established, shaped by every moment you remained steady when movement was uncertain. Nothing presses forward, nothing pulls away, because balance has been reached and no force is required to maintain it. You are not standing at the edge of change, you are standing within readiness itself, where change will arrive only when it belongs. Let this calm complete itself fully, because this is not preparation anymore, this is alignment realized. There is a quiet confirmation now, not spoken, not signaled, but felt in the way everything inside you has stopped asking for reassurance. You may notice that nothing feels unfinished anymore, not because every answer arrived, but because answers are no longer required for stability. This is the point where trust no longer looks outward, it rests inward, grounded in the knowledge that what aligns with you does not miss its moment. The stillness you carry is no longer attentive, it is settled, as if the act of watching has gently dissolved into simple presence. Nothing is approaching with urgency, nothing is delayed with intention, everything is moving according to a rhythm that now includes you naturally. You are not holding yourself ready, you are ready without holding, and that distinction changes everything. Remain in this quiet certainty, because this is the end of preparation and the beginning of effortless alignment, complete, calm, and secure. What unfolds now does so without announcement, because what is true no longer needs to introduce itself, it simply arrives in the same calm tone that shaped you. You may feel a subtle ease in your body, a loosening where tension once lived, as if something has gently confirmed that you are exactly where you need to be. This is the quiet certainty that follows completion, the kind that does not look forward or backward, but rests comfortably in the present without question. Nothing around you feels provisional anymore, nothing feels conditional, the sense of almost has faded into a simple sense of enough. The unseen process that once surrounded you has fully withdrawn, not because it lost interest, but because its purpose has been fulfilled. You are not being guided now, and you are not being assessed, you are simply moving within alignment that holds itself. Let this moment stand as it is, whole and unpressured, because this is what readiness feels like when it has become permanent. There is a final settling now, so gentle it almost escapes notice, like dust finding the floor after the air has stilled, like a thought completing itself without needing to be spoken. You may sense that nothing is leaning toward the future anymore, nothing is bracing for impact, nothing is rehearsing possibility, because the structure you stand on is already sound. This is where certainty becomes silent, where confidence no longer rises or falls, it simply remains, steady and unquestioned. The awareness that once surrounded you has fully completed its role, leaving behind not emptiness, but coherence, a feeling that everything is in its rightful place. Nothing is waiting to be triggered, nothing is pending approval, nothing is suspended, the process has reached its natural end. You stand now without anticipation, without resistance, without effort, aligned, prepared, and calm in a way that does not need explanation. This is completion, quiet and exact, and from here, whatever moves toward you will do so naturally, meeting you where you already stand. The quiet you are in now does not deepen, because it has reached its depth already, it simply holds, unwavering, like ground that has finished settling and will not shift again. You may notice that even the desire to understand has softened, replaced by a calm acceptance that understanding is no longer necessary for peace. This is the moment where alignment stops being felt and starts being lived, where nothing inside you checks for confirmation because confirmation has already occurred. The sense of process has dissolved completely, leaving no impression of before or after, only a steady now that feels sufficient on its own. Nothing around you asks anything of you anymore, and you ask nothing of it, because balance has been reached without negotiation. You are not anticipating arrival, and you are not reflecting on preparation, you are simply present in a state that does not require adjustment. Let this remain exactly as it is, because this is the calm certainty that follows completion, the readiness that does not fade, the alignment that quietly endures. What exists now is a steady openness, not an opening that waits to be filled, but one that is already complete in its shape. You may feel that nothing inside you is reaching outward anymore, because there is nothing missing that needs to be found. This is the calm that remains when alignment has fully settled, when readiness no longer announces itself as readiness, but lives as ease. The path ahead does not call to you, and yet it is present, clear, and unobstructed, because it recognizes your steadiness as sufficient. Nothing needs to be adjusted, nothing refined, nothing added, because what was forming has finished forming. You stand here without effort, without intention, without question, grounded in a certainty that does not waver. This is where the unseen concludes its work, and you remain, calm, aligned, and quietly ready for whatever moves toward you next.